Chanchalapathi Dasa to kindly take his seat on the dais. I heartily welcome His Grace Chanchalapati Dasa, Vice Chairman and Trustee, the Akshaya Patra Foundation. For your kind information, Akshaya Patra is world's largest NGO-run midday meal program, feeding 1.5 million children in 10,845 government schools across 10 states in India. It has been the brainchild of His Grace. His Grace is also President of Vrindavan Chandrodaya project, which is India's one of the tallest structure, 700 feet high, to broadcast the Vedic culture using modern science and technology. As well as His Grace is also Senior Vice President of ISKCON Bangalore, which was conceived by him in 1997. His Grace Chanchalapati Dasa has been working in the field of spiritual education since 1984 and social development since 2000. Although he had been passionate about science since his school days, he became introduced to Indian spirituality as an undergraduate student in PSG College of Technology, Coimbatore. Impressed by the profound concepts of spirituality, he pursued the same even more vigorously while doing his master's program in electrical communication engineering at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He joined ISKCON in 1984, became involved in Akshaya Patra in 2000. He was able to combine his value of compassion from his spiritual learning with his education in technology and apply the same to create a social development organization like the Akshaya Patra Foundation. He continues to research, teach and talk extensively on spirituality, social development and intersection of science and spirituality. I again welcome His Grace to our campus. I request Professor I.K. Bhatt, Director MNIT, to garland His Grace. I now request Professor Ravindra Nagar, Dean Academic Affairs, to garland His Grace. I request Professor M.K. Shimali, Registrar and Professor Civil Engineering, to garland His Grace. Now I request His Grace to enlighten us with his divine words.
Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurum-militam ena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Very respected Director Professor Bhatt, Professors and Deans of this very wonderful institution, and my dear young students, boys and girls, who have just entered the threshold of this institution. I'm very happy to be here, to be participating in the concluding session of your orientation program. I will be conscious of time. Some years ago, there was a very bright student from Delhi. He also took part in the competitive examinations after his 12th, just like all of you have done, and he got All India 15th rank. And he joined the Indian Institute of Technology in Delhi, did very well, brilliant student, coming from a simple middle class family. After his days in IIT, he went to one of the world's most prestigious institutions, Harvard Business School in America. Did really well there, joined some of the biggest American companies, rose higher and higher in position, and then joined another very, very reputed company in today's world, a consulting firm, McKinsey, if you've heard of. I have a very close friend, devotee friend in McKinsey. Their policy there is, they give you a job for 2 years, and at the end of 2 years, they evaluate your performance. If they see you're good, they will lift you up. Otherwise, they'll say thank you very much. Very competitive. Only the finest brains in the world continue to be there. And this gentleman I'm talking about, he joined that company and he rose for about 10 years and finally became the CEO and Managing Director of McKinsey. And then he was also on the board of many big companies in America. He was also an advisor to a very famous foundation. You must have heard of Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation. Looks like a very wonderful story, isn't it? But do you know where he is today? Sadly, he is serving a prison sentence in New York jail. Here's the example of Mr. Rajat Gupta, a simple Indian middle-class family dreaming to do well and did well, and somewhere something went wrong. He was implicated in some releasing information of a company which he was not supposed to do. It is considered unethical and illegal, and he became a victim of this. So, my dear friends, you have now come to a very important institution, a very important stage in your life. You're going to learn a lot of wonderful things. I was just now introduced to some of the professors. I can understand they're going to teach you some of the most important things of engineering subject. And the next 4 years you're going to be applying, immersing yourself. Yes, you must do all of that. And you have all come here after a lot of maybe 2 years, 3 years of grueling studies, very intense studies. While you do all of this and learn all of this technological knowledge, very important, there is something that you have to deeply learn about yourself, the purpose of life, the meaning of life, and not lose sight of some of these very, very valuable values and ethics that we must practice in our lives. Earlier during introduction, they mentioned about the Akshaya Patra program. Very gracious and very liberal said that the brainchild of mine, it's actually, the seed of the vision was planted by our spiritual master, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And later on it was developed by a group of devotees and some of the professionals from big corporations in Bangalore city, and then it has become a very big institution today. Last 15 years we have been functioning. In the year 2006 or so, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam visited our place in Bangalore. And as you must have all been reading in the newspapers, we had a very wonderful time with him. I wish we could display some pictures, but I think we are not prepared. And we had some number of students from government schools sitting on the floor. And he carried buckets and he served the children. President of India. Of course, he loved it. As we know, he is a great human being with a great heart. I thought I should recollect one other very important address that he made. Some of you might have received, things are going around on the WhatsApp. Once Dr. Kalam, as President of India, addressed the European Parliament. And in that, it's good to remember his very wonderful message that he delivered there on this occasion too. He said, our country teaches at the heart of every individual there should be righteousness. If there is righteousness, there will be beautiful character. If there is beautiful character in an individual, there will be harmony in house. If there is harmony in the house of an individual, there will be order in the country. And if there is order in the country, there will be peace in the world. A very beautiful and simple message, and all the members of the European Parliament stood up and gave him a standing ovation. I was reflecting on this. Dr. Kalam's message was that in the heart of every individual, there has to be righteousness. A moral barometer that tells us whether we are thinking, acting rightly, which is extremely important. There is one statement issued by the United Nations, because you know how United Nations is trying to keep peace in the world, formed after the Second World War, and trying to bring peace and keep peace in the world. United Nations statement is, before wars are fought with missiles and bombs and aircrafts outside, the war begins in the heart of an individual. So it's so very important that we understand, we maintain a right consciousness, a right kind of an attitude to life, and we are governed by strong principles. My dear students, I know you are not young middle school children to tell you about morality. You have now grown up. But I want to talk about some of these things. I want to share with you, for instance, my own personal example. When I was a student, like you or even younger, I was very fascinated and I was a great fan of science and technology, and even now I continue to be one. I still read and keep myself abreast as much as possible in the midst of my other studies. There were a few things that triggered my journey from fascination of science, an enduring fascination of science, to an appreciation and admiration of the profound knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures. When I was a student, young student, I came across this. If you take a piece of rope, a simple rope, You hang it on 2 points, a uniform rope hang it on 2 points. It forms an arch, right? Some of you may already be knowing what I'm referring to. In mathematics, it's called a catenary. It's a cos hyperbolic equation. When I read about it, I was very intrigued. Just see, a simple rope in this world, when you take it and hang it, it forms a certain arch in a uniform gravitational field, that it creates a certain arch which is governed by cos hyperbolic equation. Actually, this world, the universe that we live in, is governed by laws, and these laws are very, very rigorous and mathematically accurate. Like, say, for instance, you all know this, if I take a ball and throw it up, and if I give you the initial velocity and the angle at which I am throwing, I'm sure all of you can quickly calculate after how many seconds and at what feet it is going to hit the ground. Isn't it? So, a simple ball thrown, the projectile motion is governed by laws, and these are laws which are mathematically determined laws. In fact, it was Galileo who first time he mentioned the universe is a grand book written in the language of mathematics. It is so accurate. Everything around the world is governed by laws of nature and mathematically accurate laws of nature. Today we are having a rain shower outside. There are many trees, and all the trees there is rainfall, and imagine there is a leaf and there is water collecting on the leaf, and there is a drop that is getting formed at the edge of the leaf, and when the drop will get detached from the leaf and fall to the ground, you can calculate. And it is following this. There is no scientist watching the drop of water, but the laws of nature are ubiquitous. They are all pervading, and they are always working. This is the way this world is. In fact, today we have science and technology because of the stability of the laws of nature. We have fluorescent lights, we have air travel, we have mobile phone communication. All of this has become possible because of the stability of the laws of nature. Imagine if the charge of electron is varying day after day, we would not have had a proper electronics. If it was randomly fluctuating, we would not have a stable electronic technology. It would become very unpredictable. So there are universal constants, there are laws, and these are very stable laws, and because of that, we are able to have science and technology today. Now, I would like you to think about a few questions. Just see, the dress that all of you are wearing, you chose the dress that you are wearing. Or maybe somebody chose for you and said you will look good, it will look good for you, and you got that dress. The course that you are all doing, you chose. The institution, you chose. Maybe there were some limitations. Within certain range you could choose, but you chose. Tomorrow the jobs you will get, you will be choosing. And at some point in your life, you will be choosing your spouses. The house you will be living in, you will choose, again within certain constraints, budget and all of that. Now, look at this situation. The dress you wear, the courses you do, the institutions you join, the jobs you get, the spouses you marry, you choose all of these things. Now, I'll ask you a question. Did you choose your parents? Which family? Which house? Where you should be born in? Did you choose? No, we had no choice of that. We have all come across in our lives, and as you grow up, you will come across more. There are always people who are more intelligent than us. I don't want to offend somebody who is very, very intelligent, that there is no one more intelligent than him or her, but assuming. We always see that there is somebody more intelligent than us. We also see sometimes people not so intelligent than us. Now, the question is, did we choose how much intelligence I must have? If we had an opportunity, we could have chosen a few more, 10 more kilos of intelligence. No. Some amount of intelligence, and then we improve on it, we build on it, we learn and we sharpen it. But still there is some initial critical intelligence. And that is what was measured before you were let into this institution, like it always happens. Next, the skin color that we have. Did we choose? In this world, there are some people white, some people black, some people brown, some people some other color. And it's an important factor. At least to some extent. We did not choose. So you see, there are certain things we choose in life. Dress, jobs, spouse, institution. There are some things where we are born, how much intelligence we have, what gender we would be born. Did we have a choice? If we were given a choice, you like to be born as male or female, and then we tick and then we come out. No, it doesn't happen that way. Not us, even our parents didn't have a choice. They were also waiting 9 months. Boy, girl, what do you want? And finally, no, boy or a girl. So, but on the one hand, we see this world around us, it is strictly governed by laws, mathematically accurate laws. And there are some things which we have seem to choose, and some things it looks like somebody else made this choice for us. Who made the choice, and on what basis did they make this choice? Can we know that? Or it was just a random fluctuation, an event in this world. You see, lot of people saw apples falling from the apple tree. And what did most people do? They picked up the apple and ate it. But there was one person who started thinking, why did the apple fall to the ground? And we know that led to the understanding of the theory of gravity. Most people before that, they thought apples fall from a tree to the ground because that is the way they are. There's nothing to question about. That's okay. Let's pick up the apple, eat it, and go on with life. But there was one person who was particularly inquisitive to know why did it fall, and then He had such a probing intelligence, and it led to the discovery of the theory of gravity. In the same way, could it be that we just think that we are born in some family, we're born as men, women, with certain amount of intelligence, certain attribute, this. That's the way it is because that is the way it is. Let's get on with life. Our Vedic literatures say, no. You must have a probing intelligence to think and understand why these things are so. Why is it that I am born in this world in a certain family, in a certain way? Someone else born in Somalia, someone else born in Washington, D.C., in the White House. Someone else born in some Jopli in India. Why all this? Is there a law that governs these? Or that's the way it is because that is the way it is? No, our Vedic literatures say there are definitely certain laws that govern these things. It is just that we have not applied our minds sufficiently, and hence we have not been systematically educated about it. That's why we don't know what it is. Just like a villager looks at an aircraft flying, for him it's like a magic. But somebody who is trained in science and technology, he knows what's actually working there to make the aircraft fly in the air. So, our Vedic literatures teach us that we must ask these very, very important questions and develop ourselves spiritually. Just like you see, if you don't eat good food, there will be malnourishment, and your body will not develop the necessary strength and immunity and all of those things. Your body, then you become weak bodily. If you don't go to good school and college, you don't get educated, your mind and intellect will not develop. Now our Vedic literatures say, in the same way as we think about development of the body, development of our mind and intellect, there is also another important aspect of ourselves, and that is the consciousness. And there is a way to improve and enhance and develop and enrich our consciousness, and if we don't do that, we will have missed out something very important part of ourselves. Just like, imagine, your parents feed you well and give you good food, but don't send you to a good school and college. What will you become? Just like we have to think about development of the body, development of our mind and intellect, similarly we also have to think about development of consciousness, which is actually missing in our modern life. And this development of consciousness is the one which actually gives a certain foundation to our life. It inspires good character, it inspires good ethics and morality, and it inspires good conduct in life, which is so much essential today. Students, you are all here for an important portion of your life. You're going to study science and technology, and you're going to have some dreams and learn about a lot of things in life. And please do well. Please aim for the moon. No, aim for the stars in life. But while you do all of those things, please be grounded on right behavior, right conduct, human thinking, being kind to another individual, being compassionate. All of these are very essential, and that comes from actually developing our consciousness. There is another thing that our Vedic literatures point out. animals, birds, beasts, everyone, it is said that they ask 4 questions in their life. I'm using the word for questions. The Sanskrit word is jignasa. Jignasa means to inquire, discover, explore, and try to understand. That's jignasa. So it is said that all animals, everyone does 4 jignasa. One is jignasa about food, where to eat food, where I will get food, how I can get food. Second jignasa is about where will I sleep and rest. Third jignasa is how will I be safe, safety. Birds build nests and so on. And the last is jignasa about mating. Birds migrate, look for a good season, mate, come back. Very elaborate. All of us have seen this on National Geographic channels. So these are the 4 questions. These are the 4 jignasa that all animals do. But then our Vedic literature point out, but human beings are very, very special and different in their cognitive powers, in their intellectual powers. For example, the ability of a human being to do root cause analysis is so profound and so developed, unlike other animals. Other animals may exhibit some ability to do root cause analysis, but human beings have extraordinary ability. When we look, just like for instance, moment we read in the newspaper about an aircraft had a crash, what comes to all our minds? We'll be thinking, where is the black box? Did they find the black box? Because we want to know what caused the air crash. Second, human beings' ability to exhibit emotions, range of emotions, are much more than any other animals and birds can exhibit. Third, human beings' ability to use language and communicate language is something unprecedented. No other animal, no other species has that. Our ability to understand grammar, grammatical rules, and use them so freely. If I make one grammatical mistake, you will figure out that, yeah, he made a mistake. You see how we are? And we are so good at it. In every language there is grammar, and you can make grammatical mistakes and you will immediately figure out. Our ability to use language and communicate using language, incredible. Our ability to develop art, music, dance. Of course, there are some species who also have some musical and art and dance and all, but still the profoundness, the intricate things, that the way we can develop these arts is something very unique, no animals can do. Human beings have the ability to tell stories. We don't see dogs all getting together and telling one story among themselves and laughing at the story. Have you ever seen that? No. These are all indications of a human consciousness, our intelligence and our consciousness, which is very advanced and very developed. And the Vedic literature is saying, this developed consciousness must be used for an inquiry on the 5th question, which no animals can do. Ahara nidra bhayamaitunamscha samanyametat pashubhi narana. Dharmo hi tasmat adhiko vishesho dharma syahina Pashubhis samana. Ahar question, food question. Nidra question. Ahara nidra bhayamaitunamsta. Samanyam etat pashubhit narana. This is common to human beings, animals. Everyone does these four. What is that fifth question which only human beings can ask? And in the Vedic literatures, that fifth question is called Brahma Jignasa. Means inquiry about these fundamental questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? Where do I go after this life? What is the purpose of this creation? Why things are the way they are? Why is it that I am born in a certain family and not in some other family? Someone else is born in a certain family. Someone is born with more intelligence, someone with less intelligence. Someone with better talent than someone else with less talent. Why all of these things are happening? Why the world exists? It's only we as human beings can ask this question. If you have a dog or a cat in your home, try go and talk to the dog or cat and say, dog, can you think what is the purpose of life? No, the dog will only be wagging its tail, looking if you can give a biscuit, because it's doing ahar question. So animals can only do these four questions. According to science, a chimpanzee, a gorilla chimpanzee, has a DNA which is about 99% like human beings. Right? Suppose we had a chimpanzee sitting here on the chair. He would still be a 100% beast. He's not 99% human, almost human. He's able to understand everything we are doing. Almost. No. He will still be 100% beast. So even beyond the DNA makeup, there is something that makes humans humans. And that is what we have been endowed with. Very extraordinary ability of consciousness. And we have to develop this consciousness, which is what as human beings we can do. And when we develop that consciousness, you get a certain perspective of life, you get a certain purpose of life, which will actually inspire naturally, spontaneously, good behavior, good thinking, good conduct. You don't have to tell somebody, do this, be like that. This knowledge and this training is missing in today's world. Spiritual development. So while another important misunderstanding is, when we talk about spiritual development, people get the impression, spiritual development, should I do that now? I can do it when I'm 70 years old. No. You cannot learn many things when you're 70 years old. Why institution? If there is a student, 70-year-old student wants to get admitted to first year, will your directors, they admit such a person? No, at 70 years you cannot learn. Another important misunderstanding, we think that if we have to think about spiritual development, we have these stereotype ideas in our minds, especially because we are Indians. We think that if we have to develop spiritually, we have to go. One thing that comes to our mind is Himalayas. We have to go there. Or some forest. But actually these are all misunderstandings. Do you know where the most important, most exalted spiritual knowledge was discussed in our Vedic literatures? It was in the Bhagavad Gita. And where did that Bhagavad Gita happen? Was that in the Himalayas? It was in a battlefield. And that knowledge which Krishna imparted to Arjuna is called Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya means Brahman, Brahma Jignasa. Understanding Brahman means absolute truth. There is a meaning. What is this absolute truth? I won't go into it. Some other occasion, some other interactions, you will have opportunity to learn what is absolute truth. in Sanskrit called Paratattva, Param Satya or Param Brahma. And this knowledge, Brahma Gyan, Brahma Vidya, was imparted by Krishna to Arjuna. Arjuna was not a sannyasi. Arjuna was not a rishi. Arjuna was not a brahmana. Arjuna was a fighter, Kshatriya. And he was in the battlefield. And he could understand, learn and practice it. None of our lives are actually as complicated as being in the battlefield, because battlefield, life and death situation, our lives are relatively not more simple. We may have some ups and downs, but still not that intense as Arjuna experienced. And even Arjuna could practice, and Krishna was teaching him that. If Arjuna can practice on the battlefield, none of us can give an excuse that we cannot do. Just like you see, along with your studies, you will do some sports, some music, some swimming, something you do. In the same way, you just have to spend a little time for spiritual understanding and spiritual development, along with a bulk of your time going for your studies and doing well in your career. You must do well. There is no compromise on that. But while you are doing that, you can also learn some spiritual concepts which will govern your thinking, which will influence your thinking and bring about good behavior in the society. And it is very important, this spiritual development. And somehow in our modern society, we have neglected spiritual development. We have a lot of understanding about physical development of our body, intellectual and mental development of our mind and intelligence, but somehow we have neglected another important component of ourselves, which is the consciousness and consciousness development. It's actually our consciousness which is giving us a certain sense. This table has no consciousness. This sofa has no consciousness. Whereas we have consciousness. If there is an ant crawling on the floor, ant has consciousness, maybe small consciousness, a limited consciousness. And as human beings, we have a more developed consciousness. And this developed consciousness is meant for asking the most vital question, Brahma Jignasa, the fifth question, who am I? What is the purpose of creation? What is all this about? And when we know answers to these things, and when we base our activities on the basis of that understanding, there is natural, spontaneous, upright, morally upright, compassionate behavior in everyone in the human society. And that is what we are saying that we must develop. Now, last one or 2 points only. Now somebody may ask the question, okay, somebody develops spiritually also. Now, what will happen to that person? Suppose somebody does some spiritual. What the spiritual practices are to develop, I'll come to that. Just like if you have to keep your bodies in good state, you have to eat good food, nutritious food. If you have to keep your mind and intelligence in good state, you have to go to good school, colleges, learn music, learn arts, read some books, all of those things. You are intellectually developing. If you have to develop our consciousness, what we have to do, I'll come to that. That's the last part of my talk. Now, somebody may ask, okay, let's say somebody develops himself or herself in consciousness. And then, what will happen to that person? Suppose that person, some spiritually developed person. Sometimes we see in this world, even a spiritually developed person sometimes gets disease, meets with an accident, or some other problem. They also go through. So what is the big deal? Spiritually developed person and a spiritually undeveloped person. They also go through the same kind of things. Just like we often cite this example in the Mahabharata. All the Pandavas, they were so devoted to Krishna, but they had so many difficulties. What's the big deal? Why we should take up? Somebody may ask. Our acharyas have given a very good example. Actually, when difficulties and dangers come to a person who has developed himself spiritually, what he experiences is completely different from what a spiritually undeveloped person experiences. An example is given by the acharyas. Imagine there is a cat. The cat is holding a mouse in its mouth. What is the experience of the mouse? Terrible, isn't it? Death. Where can I free myself? Full of anxiety. Imagine the same cat holding its kitten in its mouth. Cat holds the kitten also in its mouth. What is the experience the kitten is going through? My mother is carrying me. So safe I am. I don't have to worry about anything. See, externally the circumstances look like the same. Cat holding a mouse or a kitten in its mouth. Externally speaking, it looks like the same. But internally, what the animal, the kitten or the mouse is experiencing is far different. In the same way, when we develop our spiritual culture, spiritual consciousness, then when we go through all of these difficulties in life, when we go through certain temptations in life, we will know how to be regulated, how to be self-controlled, how to make better choices in life, keeping welfare of the larger society, not just my self-centered wellness, but how the world can also become happier place, a better place. This thinking is very essential. And the foundation for that thinking to emerge is spiritual development and spiritual consciousness. It's not like, it's okay when you were small children, we had moral science lessons and our some father or somebody teacher, moral science teacher told us, tell truth, be honest. That's okay at one stage. But now you are all thinking individuals. You've all grown up now. You need intellectual stimulation. Why we have to be so? And that is provided by spiritual development and spiritual consciousness. Now, when we talk about spiritual development and spiritual consciousness from the Vedic literatures, please do not get carried away. Do not go with a misunderstanding that we are presenting some Hindu ideas. No, actually what we are presenting is very general ideas. In fact, this kind of a knowledge and understanding is present in all the scriptures of the world. The core principles are the same in all the religions of the world, and we must have the highest respect for the teachers of these world religions that have come about. And actually, if you see the core principles, there is no external certain practices may be different because that is understandable. These religions were taught in different geographical, cultural, social settings, and so there were some differences in all of that. But otherwise, the core principles are the same in all of the religions, great religions of the world. So please do not think about, when I talk about spiritual development and cite a Vedic shloka or something, that I'm putting forward a Hindu idea. These are actually very generic ideas. Now, coming to the last point, how to develop consciousness. We talked about there is a consciousness and we have a human consciousness. There is a way to develop it. Just like intellectual development takes time and effort and there is a systematic way to do it, even spiritual development takes a little time, and over a period of time we can develop ourselves. We can't become impatient. I had once a young student, young boy, and he was telling me, he met me in the temple in Bangalore, and he said, I'm practicing this, I'm doing this, but nothing is happening to me, I'm not seeing any change. I asked him, I just started talking to him and asked him, what are you, how are you, what are you doing? And he said, I'm a dental student. And then I asked him, dental student, how long do you study in your course? And he said about 5.5, 6 years. internship, and then after that you don't get a good job, you have to do your master's, like medical and all that. So 7 years, 8 years. So I asked him, you see, for learning about 32 teeth, you take 8 years. You want to understand Brahma Vidya overnight? So please have patience. It cannot happen like that. It requires certain patience. You have to patiently endeavor and act on it. I recommend, there are 3 important recommendations made in the Vedic literatures to develop ourselves spiritually. 1. There are certain books of spiritual knowledge, and the foremost in our country is the Bhagavad Gita. And this Bhagavad Gita, there is a translation and an explanation available written by our spiritual master Srila Prabhupada, and this has become the most popular edition all over the world and has been regarded as a textbook in many American universities also. And our devotees may... Are we having a display of some books? Okay, you can take a look at some books that may be on display. So reading these books will help you understand and develop this understanding. Because the spiritual knowledge in our country especially, it's very intellectually based. It is not sentimental. There's a lot of understanding. Second is to associate with people who are practicing spiritual life. That is the way to develop ourselves spiritually. If you maintain close contact with a person who is smoking and drinking and all of that, you will get influenced by that association, and very soon you could become a smoker and a drinker. If you associate with somebody with the tuberculosis disease closely, there is a very good possibility you will get tuberculosis. Right? That's the way association works. In the same way, when you associate with a person who is spiritually charged and practicing spiritual life, you get also spiritually inspired. So it's very important to keep in touch and associate with spiritually inclined spiritual practitioners. And the third important thing, which is recommended for this age in the Vedic literatures, is to chant the names of God. It is said that you are all familiar. Today, this age is called Kali Yuga. Before this, there was Dwapar Yuga, and before that, there was Treta Yuga, and before that, there was Satya Yuga. And in different yugas, different methods of spiritual realization, spiritual development are mentioned. Knowing the circumstances of people in Kali Yuga, the Vedic literatures recommend a very simple method for Kali Yuga. In Satya Yuga, there was a different method. Treta Yuga, a different method. Dwapar Yuga, a different method. Kali Yuga, a very different method. Krute yad dhyayato Vishnu, Tretayam makaihi, Dwapare paricharyayam, kalau tadhari kirtana. It is said that what was practiced in Satya Yuga is different, Dwapar Yuga, in Kali Yuga, that same perfection, spiritual development will happen by chanting the names. Hari Kirtana, by chanting the names. Upanishad is about Kali Yuga. There this mantra is mentioned, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashakam Namnam Kalikalmasha Nashanam Natha Parataropayaha Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. There is no better method. This is the proclamation of all the Vedas. So these 3 simple methods: reading books like the Bhagavad Gita, associating with saintly people, and third, chanting the names of God. And if we do this, a few hours, few minutes in a day, set aside for these things on a daily basis, and do this maybe 15 minutes to begin with. Along with all that you do, you will also develop spiritually while you are developing intellectually from your classes in this institute. This is what we recommend. And today, I just like to present, for the last 5 minutes that I have, I want to demonstrate this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra with all of you. This mantra should be chanted little audibly, not in your mind, but a little audibly so that you can hear it yourself. That is the first important thing. The second thing is, when you are chanting Hare Krishna mantra, the meaning of the mantra is, you are praying to Krishna, you are praying to Rama, please engage me in your service. That should be the mood of the chanting. Please engage me in your service. And the third important thing is, the mind may go here and there. When you are chanting, bring the mind back to hear the holy name. And the last important instruction you must remember is, you must chant with a certain amount of internal intensity, not in a very casual way. Our acharyas have given the example, it should be like a cry of a child for mother. Just like a child, the child sometimes cries, the mother looks and the mother is busy doing something. And sometimes the child cries so much, mother will stop everything and go and attend to the child. Our cry, our chanting should be like a cry of a child, like a helpless cry of a child for mother. Then it will be very potent and very effective. So like this, let us remember these few instructions and let us all chant together for about 3 to 4 minutes. That's the time we have. And after 3 minutes, I will say, I will close. After that, if anyone has any questions, I'll try to answer. So, let us chant. And if any of you have an objection to chant Krishna's name, request you to chant the name of God that is familiar, that you are more familiar with, that you have faith in, no issue. The most important thing is to chant the names of God and develop spiritually. It doesn't matter whether you go to Rajasthan University, you go to Delhi University, you have to become an engineer. That's the important thing. Which university is a secondary thing, relatively. You all have to become engineers. In the same way, important thing is spiritual development. If you have any hesitation, think of a God that you are familiar with, you have faith, you chant that name of God. By chanting of the names of God, we must develop spiritually. That is the important thing. So, next few minutes, let us chant together. Chant little audibly, so that you can hear. And we will chant together, and if there is a recording of, will it work? Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. I have almost taken the full time. I don't think there is time for questions. We will stop here. Or can we have one or two questions only? If someone has a question, please. Yes, please.
Mike. Sir,
They'll give you a mic, I think.
random in nature, right? You said everything is calculated, everything follows certain mathematics. Yeah, so they say that we are destroying nature, we are cutting trees, we are generating waste, we are doing things that are harming earth. So, might be that this is also planned, this is also something that is planned, this is not just mere destruction, this is not as random as we are seeing it. Might be it is like earth was meant to be destroyed, it was meant to be extracted fully. And
Very good.
is it really random or
Very good question. Yes, that is expected to happen, especially in Kali Yuga. It is said that in Kali Yuga, people will exploit nature, everything for their own well-being, not mindful of what is happening to posterity and to other species and so on. Yes, it is expected to happen in Kali Yuga. We have to do, and the whole world is trying to do, to decelerate this kind of a deterioration and degradation that's happening. The Vedic literatures also say, while the world goes through ups and downs, there may be golden era, there may be iron era, there will be other kinds of deterioration. In spite of all those cycles the world will go through, at least it is said that we must develop ourselves spiritually and at the end of this life attain spiritual wealth and spiritual merit to move on to a better consciousness in life, while developing this consciousness also helps to decelerate. You become more thoughtful, you become more mindful and responsible in your living. We can slow down this destruction that is happening, and while all of that happens in a larger from a larger perspective according to Kali Yuga forces, we can also individually develop ourselves spiritually and attain perfection. So that is also recommended. That is also mentioned in the scriptures.
Example is Kalam sir.
Yes.
Example is Kalam sir.
Yes. Yeah, our director is mentioning, the example is Dr. Kalam. Would you like to say something? He's just mentioned that how Dr. Kalam is an example, that how he lived in the world which is deteriorating, and we read that he was so unhappy the way our Indian politicians and the parliaments are not functioning and all that. But in the midst of that, he was spreading good positivism and positive, inspiring young people. So even though that is the force of nature, we can all personally and individually and influence our small ecosystem that we are part of in a positive way, despite the degrading forces that work all around us. Is that okay? Any other question? We will start. Thank you very much for attending this program.
Thank you, Your Grace, for enlightening us with this beautiful knowledge. And this is the best way to start our academic year.
May I request Dr. Jyoti Joshi ma'am to come onto the stage and present a memento.
As well as a vote of thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, one and all. It's a divine blessing for all of us that His Grace Chanchalapati Dasa, a personality of such an high eminence, has come to our doorsteps to enlighten us with his infinite wisdom and vast reservoir of spiritual knowledge. On behalf of the Institute and audience present, I express my deep sense of gratitude to His Grace Chanchalapati Dasa for enlightening us and making us feel proud that we are the child of God, we are the children of God. However, it's worthwhile to mention that the magnitude of spiritual knowledge being imparted by His Grace cannot be compensated by any mere expressions of thankfulness. I wish to thank the administration and all the devotees of Akshaya Patra Foundation for the present interaction with His Grace Chanchalapati Dasa to enhance and promote the spiritual growth of all the stakeholders of the Institute. I express our gratitude to the Director of the Institute, Professor I.K. Bhatt, for conceiving the idea of inculcating a motivational talk for including a motivational talk on spiritual enlightenment and also for facilitating the infrastructural requirement and other administrative support. Here I would like to add one more thing, that with the kind support of the director of the institute, we are very soon going to start evening classes on consciousness studies. Hats off to the director for this, and I would like you to come and join and talk to the person concerned, and the details of the people who will be working in this regard in this line will be given on the website. Thanks are also due to Professor Rohit Goyal, Dean Planning and Development and Coordinator Student Mentorship Program, and his team of SMP students, including Chief Mentor, Sub-Mentor and other mentors, and other student volunteers as well. The staff of Estate Section, backbone of the Institute, with their dedication and awe-inspiring organizational skills, also deserve a special mention. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the students, especially the new entrants, who wholeheartedly participated and attended the orientation program. And thanks to all the parents who have graced this occasion. Their being a part of this event is a very generous display of the faith and confidence in the Institute and its management. Thank you all, and again a lot many more thanks to Chandrashekar Prabhu Dasa. Thank you. Hare Krishna.